We see many old friends and BKI alumni online today, as well as members of our local farm church group. And there are lots of new folks that we haven't met yet. About half of you that are beaming in today are new to us, so a very special welcome to all of you. Again, please continue to write your name and where you're beaming in from in the chat box on the right. We have a short PowerPoint and then that will open up. Chad and I and Chris are coming to you from the BCM office in the Ventura River watershed on unceded Chumash territory in Southern California. It has been a long, excruciating year for everyone. Viruses, biological, COVID, social, racist violence, and political attempts to undermine voting rights have racked our bodies and our body politic in the US. And it has all unfolded against a backdrop of deepening climate catastrophe. Marginalized communities continue to be hit hardest by each of these four crises. And we all are trying to make sense of and respond to these crises while negotiating a disorienting level of social isolation. These challenges are testing what it means to be human, to be a citizen, and to be church. Throughout this Advent season, we've been singing, O come, Emmanuel. Yet, these interlocking crises reveal that our civilization has constructed a world into which it is increasingly difficult for Emmanuel to enter. Nevertheless, God's spirit of life and liberation keeps finding ways to meet us in our darkness. And we want to celebrate this light in this evening's program. We gather on the eve of the winter solstice. Despite the pain and anguish of this year, the planets keep turning, a sure sign of the faithfulness of Creator to us. Tomorrow brings the longest night of the year, and this one is special. As many of you no doubt have heard, the sky will feature the long-awaited great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. This rare close encounter of the solar system's two largest planets may be the cause, according to one theory, of the Star of Bethlehem phenomenon so long ago. About 45 minutes after sunset tomorrow, look low toward the southwest horizon. Jupiter will appear to Saturn's lower left. The last time these two planets appeared so close was in 1623. We are grateful to be able to acknowledge this sacred solstice time, a bridge from Advent to Christmastide with three dear friends. Germaine and Harry LaFond are beaming in from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, and June Lorenzo from Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico. Thank you to each of you for joining us tonight. Let's begin by centering ourselves with a simple Taizé chant, recognizing God's accompaniment during solstice, this solstice turning. Chet is reminding me to remind you to please keep your mics muted as we sing together. And if this Taizé chant is not familiar with you, it's beautiful, as they all are. So please just start humming along and singing along when you are ready. When the night becomes dark, your love, O God, is afar. Your love, O God, is afar. When the night becomes dark, your love, O God, is afar. Your love, O God, is afar. When the night becomes dark, your love, O God, is afar. Your love, O God, is afar.
Germaine and Harry Lafon join us from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan, Elaine's home place. Here are maps for those of you who just can't envision where in the world we're talking about. Harry and Germaine were with us at the BKI earlier this year, serving as Indigenous listeners and interlocutors as we white settlers did our work around decolonization. Harry served as chief of his nation for 10 years and as director of the Office of the Treaty Council Saskatchewan for 11 years. Germaine has served long as an educator, and for decades, these two have worked at building relations between their Indigenous and Métis communities and settler society, and few are more practiced and gracious in this work. We also especially tonight want to honor Harry's recent ordination as a deacon in his diocese, a recognition of his long service to his church and community. 6 months ago, Germaine and Harry offered reflections on the summer solstice, and last month when we were visiting together, we asked if they might share again about the winter solstice, and they graciously agreed. So, Harry and Germaine, over to you. Welcome.
Yeah. Anyway, we had agreed that Germaine would share with us a little bit about the practices in the Métis community that she comes from, and so
he's blackmailing me. No, we were talking about solstice this afternoon and sort of preparing. And he asked me, well, what did you do in a Métis home? How did you prepare for Christmas? And did solstice have anything to do with it? As far as at home, preparing for Christmas didn't come until, well, maybe there was some behind the scene with my parents, but like as far as it being a family thing, no, it wasn't there. But when I was in boarding school, which is not a residential school, in boarding school, it was important, and we did preparation. A lot of time it was to do little sacrifices and sort of prepare physically or spiritually, I guess, not so much the physical. And what was it now?
getting ready.
There were not very many practices that led to Advent. It would be a little bit like, I would say, a little Lent, in the sense that it wasn't as strong. Lent was the time where you really prepared for a longer time, and it was followed. Everybody did it. Otherwise, solstice, I heard it in class, where the teachers would explain to us through the year what was happening, what the solstice was and that, but I never connected to a spiritual event It never, it's only as I grew older and when I was in the convent at the same time, that's where I learned more about solstice. And then after marrying Harry, then it became more connected through the Indigenous way. It was more spoken about. So that's my experience.
And Germaine, could you, for our American listeners, could you just briefly explain who the Métis are in Canada?
The Métis are descendants of usually, well, for in my area, it's understood that it's Cree, but there are other tribes in the area, and the French. In our area, there was a designation at home. If you were French and Cree descendant, you were Métis, which is really a French word. And then the other people, the Scots, the people from Scotland, the English, they were called half-breeds. And I didn't know that until quite a while into my career. Then I realized there was a difference because that's how it was at home. Like you could tell when you were talking about something, you could tell what group they belonged to. Not necessarily derogatory. It was just the way it was. And for instance, like at home, when we said Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so, usually they were either French or straight from England.
And the Métis have their own language, don't you?
Yes, it's in some areas it's more pronounced where there's a lot of Cree. It's let's put it this way, it's more Cree than French. But I grew up in the area where we did French with Cree, but the French is not France French or Quebec French. It's more like a patois, I think, what they call a patois, which is sort of different, yeah. And I spoke the French Cree.
Well, and the last time we got to visit with Harry and Germaine, you shared, and I will mess up the word, but those amazing meat pies that came out of your tradition for Christmas. And next year, we are going to be there to have those pies.
Oh, right on. I just had a little experience with our son. I was checking up on him, and he said, "Mom, you know what the doctor told me? I would heal much faster if I had a meat pie a day for a while." That was kind of a lead on. I told him no, because when he was young, it was always he wanted meat pie no matter when. And I always say, no, it's not Christmas time. We don't have meat pie out of Christmas season. So he's still trying at it, and he's 40.
And Harry, you're the pastry chef on those.
Yes. Yes.
So how about some of the traditions that are from your background, Harry?
Yes. Well, first of all, I just wanted to in anaskum tago ano so mai pe koitimia ka tmosta tak tan sisip matso ya kuta ka nehiao ya. So I'm just that I know that nobody understands what I said, but the language only stays alive if you use it. And so I always try to incorporate some of the Cree language whenever where it's appropriate. And today I'm just saying thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to tell you a little bit about who we are as Cree people, Nehiawak. Germaine talked about preparation. Preparation is a very much a part of the spirituality of the Cree people. Preparation holds a very important place in the cycle of the ceremonies that the Cree people follow, and that some of that has come into the Christian traditions as well. So right now, this is the solstice, and this time of the winter It is a time where those people who have decided or pledged to dance to Sundance next summer will be gathering to sing the songs and to pray together in preparation for that big moment when they actually enter the Sundance circle and Sundance lodge and begin to dance those ceremonies. So preparation is really important, and it needs to be done properly. It needs to follow the direction of the Sundance, the elder who's been gifted with the responsibility of conducting the Sundance. So that's an important part. I was talking to a friend of mine from Sturgeon Lake First Nation just the other day, and I was asking him about, solstice. What does that mean? He in the Cree world, and he was saying, it's about family. It's about strengthening family, and in the tradition in his family is that today and tomorrow. They're holding a family sweat gathering. It's inside of their own bubble because of COVID. So, but they're bringing their family members together, and they're going to sweat together as a family, as a way of praying together as a family. And that's an important part of strengthening themselves individually and doing it in the context of reconciliation and in the context of praying with the pipe and praying with each other. Now, this elder is also a Roman Catholic, and he's very comfortable using these ceremonies and the Catholic traditions, and he just kind of lives both very comfortably, and so I think that's an important part of who we are as Cree people, is this focus on the family. That family is something that holds us together. And unfortunately, that's the part that was most attacked by colonization and by institutions like the schools that we attended. And so, in preparing ourselves, I guess, to move forward into the future, into the next 10 years or next 15 years, we have to think that way. What is it that's going to make us strong? And so, like in my own community here, Muskeg, we're very focused in strengthening the family ties in the community, helping people to understand, using some of the knowledge that I picked up from the last institute, the Kinsler Institute last winter, about knowing your past, about knowing where you come from and how you impact people around you. We've been using some of that here in Muskeg in our work, and that's our way of preparing ourselves for, to move forward. And it just fits into the thinking of Advent and thinking of Lent. When you have something important to celebrate, you need to get ready for it. You need to be spiritually ready. You need to be physically ready, emotionally, and in the cycle of the Cree worldview. So in that spirit, there is an elders group across Canada that can talk to each other regularly. they plan, they talk about spiritual things, spiritual issues, and so in this past couple of weeks, they have had conversations, and what they are promoting across the world among Indigenous societies is 2 days of prayer, 2 days of prayer. And I thought, I thought this is really appropriate, because in Canada, and I would imagine United States is not much different, the COVID has really brought out the lack of balance we have in the way we situate ourselves in the world. The discussion is all about medicine, about the vaccine, about masks, about social distancing, and that's all you hear about. And then, so now the elders are trying to bring balance into that, and they're saying, you know, you have to acknowledge that you're not in control. As human beings, we are not in control, and so we have to place our faith in where it needs to be, which is in the Creator, you know, in our God, in the whatever name we associate with that greater power. And so in these 2 days, today and tomorrow, what they're saying is that pray in the way that your culture has taught you to pray. So in the Cree world, if you smudge, tomorrow you smudge specifically to ask for a God to take care of us in this COVID time, and to do the things that we need to do, you know, the vaccines, etc. But to remember always that God carries the weight. You know, we can depend on God. That's our faith statement. We depend on God to carry the weight. We do our part. God will do His part if we approach Him and approach God in the appropriate way. And that's what these elders are telling us. You know, approach Him, approach God in your way, and lay the weight of COVID on God. And that's so important, because what we're finding now is that COVID may make you physically sick, but the greater sickness here is the mental anguish that a lot of people are suffering, the emotional trauma that they're suffering because of COVID, and we're not completely in tune with that, and so we have. So now in our communities, we're struggling with young people who don't understand what's going on. We have children who don't understand why they can't go to school. We have grandmas, kokums and mushrooms, you know, grandmas and grandpas who live in fear because this COVID is really, really tough on old and infirmed people. And so you know, the fear causes all kinds of things, all kinds of trauma, and so these elders are saying, you know, bring a balance to the way we're responding to COVID-19, and to me, I think it's a way of preparing us. It's a way of preparing us to the next reality. You know, what is it going to be like after COVID? Akshay.
So before we hear from June, here this is the first Christmastide where you're officially acting as a deacon. What will you be doing through the Christmas feast in your communities over the next few days?
Well, I guess I've been communicating with our own community to try to prepare them for the changes that are being forced on us by the responses to COVID. So I've been making posters and talking and getting information out to the community and saying, you know, big change this year is you have to pre-register if you're going to come to midnight mass. Really a different approach, you know. That's one piece. The other piece is working with the liturgy. Jermaine and I work with the liturgy for midnight mass, and Father Frederick just has to follow directions from us.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we'll come back to you all in a few minutes, but we want to hear from June Lorenzo.
Yeah, we want to now welcome to the mic June Lorenzo. June is joining us from Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico, where she works as a tribal judge, a human rights lawyer, advocating for implementation of the UN Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples, and a Presbyterian elder. She's worked in Congress, for the US Department of Justice, for Indigenous non-governmental organizations, and for both the Laguna Pueblo and the Navajo Nation. June has played a key role in the last 2 Bartimaeus Kinsler Institutes and serves on our BKI program planning committee. So first, June, we invite you to add any reflections you might have on solstice traditions in your part of Indian country. And then, speaking of rays of light in our dark times, we'd also love for you to comment on 2 Indigenous women who this year have emerged as prominent public leaders. In a landslide vote this summer, the Presbyterian Church USA General Assembly elected its first Native American moderator. Ilona Street Stewart, a member of the Delaware Natikoke tribe, is now co-moderator of your church. Is this a sign of hope to you as someone who has been deeply involved in the Presbyterian denomination? And just this week, President-elect Biden nominated Deb Haaland to be Secretary of the Interior, which would make her the first Indigenous cabinet member in US history. June, we know that you know Deb, who also hails from Laguna Pueblo, and you said yesterday in a radio interview that you are very hopeful about her tenure. So June, we would love to hear some thoughts from you.
Goatsi Hopa. Hello, everyone out there. Greetings from the Laguna village of Powati, or Guishji, as we call Powati village. For those of you who don't know, Laguna territory is just west of Albuquerque, and it's situated next to Acoma Pueblo, which is pretty famous for Sky City and so on. And I'm also Navajo. My mother is Dene, Navajo. And so I was just flooded as I was listening to Harry. I was just flooded with, I thought, you know, what am I going to say? But I was just flooded with just thinking about all the things that normally would take place this year. And so, so just a little bit of background. So, I mean, for those of you who don't know, you know, the Catholics have been around since the late 1400s. I'm in a small group of Presbyterians, and my church is the only Native American congregation in all of New Mexico. And so it's been around since the late 1860s. So I grew up with a lot of relatives who were Catholic and observing Catholic traditions, but also my grandmother was Presbyterian on my dad's side, and my grandfather was a traditional practitioner. And I'm fortunate because no one ever said to me, you have to choose one or the other, because some people in my generation, certainly my parents' generation, were told that. So I feel very fortunate that I grew up with access to a whole different paradigm. And so I grew up in a Presbyterian church, but really surrounded by lots of people. And so for, hundreds of years, there's a long history of Pueblo people holding on to their language, their ceremonies, their songs, even going underground at a time when the Catholic Church really suppressed them. And so there's kind of some brutal history, but today there is what happens is, so it's not just solstice, but it's like I grew up celebrating really from Christmas Eve all the way to January 6th. And like that whole time is really special here. Of course, we have Christmas Eve service in our Presbyterian church, which is always very special. And then, one of the fun things to do is there's 6 villages at Laguna, and in at least 3 of the villages, they'll have mass at night, and they'll have the mass, and we used to go, stay up, but they have, after the mass is over, they'll have people come in and do traditional dances like down the church, and oftentimes it's our traditional corn dance, but also a deer dance, which is really beautiful. And so then on Christmas Day, in almost all the villages, there'll be different dances, traditional dances and songs. So like deer, buffalo, and when that sign you showed is the distinctive Laguna. Laguna has an eagle dance that they're known for, the eagle dance. And so people will gather outside or inside if the weather is super cold, and the kiva, to be blessed by these songs. And the deer is a very special being. There's a lot of ceremony around the deer. So there's just a lot of ceremony around all the rituals around, what happens with the deer dance and so on. And so that's how I think about spending Christmas Day. And of course, all the amazing food that everyone cooks. So there's also a tradition where the clan mothers take a special treat to their clan children. So because we're matriarchal, my dad's aunts on his dad's side always would bring all these amazing treats for my dad. And so now I do the same. I have 4 brothers and they have a lot of kids. So I get to do that for them now. And so that's also going on. So there's so many layers going on. And then underneath all of that, for the solstice, the religious leaders for the Pueblo are praying for the people. And so of course, for every solstice, we say they take a spiritual journey, and they do this journey on behalf of the people and pray for the people. And so we know that's going on, although, not everyone is privileged to see, but we know and feel that they're doing this and taking on this sacrifice on behalf of the people. And then in my village, there's a practice of 4 nights after Christmas, 3 nights after Christmas, the 26th, 27th, and 28th, we have our traditional corn dances. And, I take part, and like 3 or 4 villages will be doing this. Some do it during the day, some do it at night, and my village happens to do it at night. So it's really wonderful because it's every age, and it's, it's something that you prepare for, something that, you hear songs that have been sung by our people for thousands of years, and it's a way to be in community. And so much of that, won't happen this year. And so I'm really wondering, but the prayers are really strong. And I know that there have been times in the past when our people went through difficult times, and but the thing for which I am grateful is those songs are hundreds, maybe thousands of years old, and those songs won't be forgotten. And, it was years of, colonization and lots of things that tried to rid our people of those songs, but I know that they're going to stay with us. And so when I see young people singing these songs, it's really hopeful to see the young men take over and sing these songs. So, and then, all the way up to January 6th is when kind of Christmas ends for us. And then, there's other things like the new leader will, there'll be a meeting of all the people on the 1st, and they'll have the blessings for the people, and the new leaders every 2 years will receive their canes and make, and it's a time for everyone to be there and wish them well. And then in our own respective villages on the 28th or 29th, we usually choose our leaders at the village level. So there's just a lot going on. Wow. So let me just say a couple of words about Deb. I mean, I had this interview the other night. Deb wasn't really raised at Laguna, although she probably came when we were in high school. I graduated with her older sister, and she and I are close in age. And but she's I know her family. I was really good friends with her cousin, and so I'd be at the family home, and she and her family would come to see their grandma, who's now gone. So and she went to law school after I did, so she used to talk to me about that and so on. But she's I see one of the things is I'm so grateful she said yes. I mean, she said yes along the way to doing these things because as a woman, as a Native woman, I think that there are so many qualified Native women who in some cases are more qualified than men, but they don't say yes. And so the thing about Deb is I'm really glad she said yes. I mean, I think she's really qualified, and she's a person who's brought a lot of people together. More importantly, she just didn't come out of the blue. She's come along with a lot of people who will be supportive and so on. And Ilona, I mean, I'm a 6th or 7th generation Presbyterian, and to see a Native woman be at the helm at least for 2 years is super exciting. And she's from the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, and I've known her for many years. And so what she brings with her and understanding so many things, and right now at a time when our denomination is really at a critical time in understanding the doctrine of discovery and what it means and how that needs to be part of any discussion on racism and so on. I'm very excited about what can happen. So anyway, I'm very excited about seeing, these women, amazing, qualified, competent women step up. So thanks for letting me share those things.
Oh, thank you, June. We are so glad you could be with us. And thank you for what you have shared. And I also wonder, was that Lucy that we saw in the back?
Yes, that was my mom.
So please greet your mom
I
for us. We are so glad to see her too.
Yeah, she's listening.
Nice, wonderful.
And congratulations on those 2 really sea change events, and these women. And you are one of those women for us. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
At BCM, we've been spending quite a bit of time this Advent reflecting on Our Lady of Guadalupe, a prominent tradition here in the Southwest. And if you haven't yet had a chance to tune into our Bartcast released last week, we invite you to find it on our BCM YouTube page. We talk about how 2 men on the margins of society, political prisoner John of Patmos and indigenous campesino Juan Diego, had visions of a woman clothed with the sun, 1,500 years apart, and each has animated movements of resistance and renewal. But now, Advent yields to the great feast of Christmas, in which we celebrate Mary of Nazareth, the courageous peasant girl who birthed Jesus as a political refugee from the imperial powers of her day. It is she from whom the vision of both Johns, the woman clothed with the sun and Guadalupe, were animated.
In today's gospel reading for Fourth Advent, we hear the amazing story of God's solidarity with Mary of Nazareth, and through her, with all of us, especially those on the margins. Because let us never forget that women, pregnant and poor, are still fleeing violence and encountering no room at the inn in our day. So let us recall the liberation song that Mary of Nazareth sang in the face of both danger and divine solidarity, the Magnificat.
And please join me in your own space as we sing together. Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Dominum Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Dominum Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Dominum Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea. In the last few minutes that we have together, we want to warmly invite you to join us for our Bartimaeus Kinsler Institute coming up in just 2 months. The pandemic is pushing us, like everyone else, to move online. And though we are keenly aware of the Zoom fatigue from which we all suffer, we think it's important to again make this unique space available. In these difficult times, it is even more important to stay connected to kindred spirits committed to faith and justice. Registration is now open, and a few of you on this call have already registered. We hope our virtual BKI platform will allow those who haven't been able to join us before to do so, and that it will bring back alumni together in this community of conviction and practice.
For those of you who are new to us, the BKI is a space where we seek to connect seminary and sanctuary, streets and soil, soma and psyche, in order to build the capacity for radical discipleship that goes to the roots of things. We usually come together in the Ventura River watershed at Camp Forest Home for 5 days, beginning on US President's Day holiday, but this year we'll meet online over the long weekend. We're keenly mindful of Zoom fatigue, as are all of you, so we'll pace our virtual gathering by meeting for only 3 hours each day. The BKI 2021 theme is deepening practices of restorative solidarity. For a third consecutive year, we'll explore the challenging work of decolonizing discipleship. We'll continue to look at how we settler Christians can build just relations with indigenous communities in North America. And we've invited 4 faith leaders, in addition to June and Jermaine and Harry and others to speak to us. Each of these invited speakers, 2 Indigenous and 2 settlers of color, is an engaged theologian, activist, pastor. And we just received confirmation that Stephen Charleston will join us. He is a Choctaw elder and longtime bishop in the Episcopal Church. We are excited to have him talk about his wonderful 2015 book, The 4 Vision Quests of Jesus, which we've been recommending highly as preparatory reading for BKI work in decolonizing discipleship.
Though we won't be able to be in the same room, we'll reconnect with and grow our kindredness through music, prayer, and community mixers, curated and facilitated by the one and only Joshua Grace. We also will have a book party for our new book, Healing Haunted Histories, which is finally being released on February 1st. During this celebration, we'll also feature the debut of a film that Grecia and Josh Lopez Reyes and others in their eco-justice project have been working on for the past year. And once again, we'll welcome BKI chaplain Robert Tubles, missioner of the Department of Indian Work and Multicultural Ministries for the Episcopal Church in Minnesota, and director of the awesome First Nations Kitchen in Minneapolis, to lead our closing liturgy. And for the first time this year, because we are online, we will also curate several post-institute workshops for ongoing engagement through the spring. Schedule and resource persons will be announced as they are confirmed.
Now, Chris, if you could unmute Rick and Kitty Ufford Chase, I just want to invite them to say a quick word about a gathering I know they were part of earlier today, which is about a new grassroots reparations movement that is spiritually grounded. And if you could, oh great. Rick and Kitty, could you just say a word about this? Because I think you've been connected with it from the beginning. This is Rick and Kitty Ufford Chase, the great animators of Stony Point Center in New York, and colleagues with the Center and Library for the Bible and Social Justice, and dear friends. Welcome.
Thank you, Chad and Elaine. It's great to be with all of you, and unexpected but wonderful to have this quick opportunity. I actually came directly from the conversation this afternoon that went on for 3 hours. This was a Reparationist Sunday event, and this is a group that has been gathering now for several years. It was really born out of the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, and it was birthed by the Truth-Telling Project that came out of that moment in time. And I would say the movement is growing and the conversation is vibrant. It's a very multiracial and diverse in pretty much every way group of people who are trying to figure out a way to lift up not just a conversation about reparations, but a conversation about reparations from a faith-based perspective, and not from one single faith-based perspective. Quite remarkable variety in that as well. So I'm trying to, I will look right now and find the website because I don't have it off the top of my head. It's just changed, and I will put it in the chat in just a moment. And their next event will be on March 24th. So mark your calendars, and you can go to this website and sign up to receive information about it.
Thanks so much for hopping on and putting that into the chat. So there's lots going on, and these institutes seek to help focalize this. In 2014, we renamed our annual gathering the Bartimaeus Kinsler Institute in honor of Ross and Gloria Kinsler. We are sad to report that just 2 weeks ago, Ross passed away after a several-year slide into dementia. But we are grateful that he now rests in the arms of God and the company of the ancestors. We will take time in February to remember this faithful servant of the church and of the gospel.
We wonder again, Chris, if you can unmute Jermaine and Harry and June, and if they could, in a brief moment or two, describe why it's important to come to the BKI, or invite people to come to the BKI, or however you want to say a word, especially for the new folks, but also for the alumni, about persevering and gathering online in February.
Well, we were invited to participate last February, just before COVID hit us, and we went there to share some parts of our lives, I guess, in a way, with people that we didn't know, who came from many different places. But as it turned out, we carried away more than what we gave. We learned so much about ourselves and about our communities, and so it's been a really give and take relationship that we've established with the Institute, and I am really looking forward to the February gathering. I'll miss the face-to-face and a lot of the storytelling that happened at meal times, but Zoom will just have to do for this time around. But I'm really looking forward to it, because I thought it gave me a lot, and I've shared that with my community.
Thank you.
How about you, June?
Well, let me just say this. I went to, last year was my second institute to attend. And I remember thanking the participants, because a lot of people talk about, like, oh, I need to do my own work. I need to do my internal work on racism. But A, a lot of people don't, and B, a lot of people don't know how. And so I think an important part of what I saw this year, I want to say last year, but it was this year, was just the modeling and the willing to help to begin the journey in doing that work. And so I just thought that was really important, and to be, privileged to see, non-Indigenous people start to do that work honestly, with good modeling, and remembering, doing it in sometimes a faith community, and not necessarily. And so I think it just kind of gave me faith in, when I get feeling sometimes frustrated with the lack of work on racism in this nation, in this world. And the thing about next year, which I think will be super fascinating, and that it'll be carried into the workshops beyond the actual days of the Institute, will be that this work is not just for, forgive my using this phrase, but it's not just for white people, it's also for people of color, because there are a lot of people of color who are settlers in this country as well. And so I think that that'll be a different conversation, but an important conversation that needs to be had. In New Mexico, the Hispanics and the Indigenous people have been trying to work out a relationship for hundreds of years. So I think it'll just be, that certainly, what does that conversation look like, and how does that work begin? And anyway, for those reasons, I'm very excited about next year's event.
Oh, we are so grateful for the three of you, for your accompaniment, and for your wisdom and your love of us. We are grateful. Thank you. So friends, we hope you will register for the upcoming BKI as we journey together deeper into decolonization and restorative solidarity. In early January, for those of you who do register, we will send a list of past programs we've done on the subject, and then some articles and book suggestions so that you'll have some preparatory material to look towards our gathering in February. If you're still thinking about it or want to recruit others, we'll offer 2 opportunities in January to connect again leading up to the BKI. Chad and I will do our first interview about the Healing Haunted Histories book with the Anabaptist Witness on Thursday, January 14th. So we hope you'll join us for that. And then a few days later, we will have the second of our 2 pre-Institute Zoom gatherings on Sunday, June 17th at the same time. Join us to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and hear from more BCM colleagues about the BKI theme. And so details will be forthcoming. We hope that you will join us and keep this circle growing. We want to close our time together by singing Wakatanka. We learned this Taizé chant from Bob Tubles. We will sing it in Dakota as it is written here. It is a prayer based on the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and you can also see the English translation below the Dakota words. Wakantanka awachinchie iyoyan paluha ohini mixuyaye wo kiena wachintan kaluha tokel yaun stolya aye wakantanka awachinchie iyoyan paluha ohini mixuyaye wo kiena wachintan kaluha tokel yaun stolya aye wakantanka awachinchie iyoyan paluha ohini mixuyaye wo kiena wachintan kaluha tokel yaun stolya aye. We wish each of you a very renewing Christmas tide and hope to see you again in the new year. Thank you for joining us this evening, and don't forget to look for the star tomorrow night.
And now, as we do in the Zoom world, we, Chris, why don't you unmute everybody and let everybody show your love to June and Jermaine and Harry and each other. We're so grateful that all of you have joined us, and we will see you soon again.
Thank you.
Yay!
So much.
Great seeing everyone.
Great to see you.
And Rose.
You again. Hopefully.
Merry Christmas. Well, stay safe.
Holidays, everyone.
Nice to see you all.
Stay healthy.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Carter.
Hey, Rose.
Oh, hey, Lisa Bachman.
Hey, Weldon.
Hey, Weldon. Oh, and there's Sharon.